Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video we are going to build a minimal APIs in C# from scratch, and also I will show you how to group your endpoints. Whether you are new to minimal APIs or you just want to clean up your routes, this video for you. First we'll create a one ASP.NET Core Web API project. Just open a Visual Studio, click on create a new project, and I will select ASP.NET Core Web API template here and click on next, and the project name I will give minimal API. Just click on next and click on create. This will create one sample project for you. So the project is created. You can see here the default controller is created, that is a weather forecast controller, and in this we have one get method. And when you open program.cs, Swagger is configured by default. So just execute this project. It will open on Swagger and with the weather forecast controller get method. You can see here the weather forecast controller and get method. So this is normal ASP.NET Core Web API. Now we'll implement minimal APIs here. Just close this. You can see here the Swagger UI and all, it is configured. Just I'll comment this, and this controller also I'll comment this. Here I'm going to write map app.map get, and here I'll give hello minimal APIs. Just save and go to properties, launch setting, and I'll select HTTP profile. By default HTTPS profile is selected. I'll comment this launch Swagger UI and select execute. When you execute this project, it will show hello minimal APIs. This is what we given in the program.cs. So this is one sample minimal APIs. Now we'll create a table and how we can implement endpoints without controllers. Just we'll see. Open SQL Server. Here I have already employee table with the columns employee ID, employee name, department and salary. We'll use this table and we'll implement endpoints. We'll use the entity framework. So if you want to use the entity framework, we have to install a few NuGet packages. Just right click, manage NuGet packages, and browse and search for Microsoft.Entity Framework Core. Microsoft.Entity Framework.SQL Server. Select this and install. The package will get installed in your project. So, and also we have to install Microsoft Entity Framework Core. Select this, install, and just check whether one more package Microsoft Entity Framework Core tools. Tools. Select and install. So now the required package is installed. Now we'll create a model. Employee model will create. First we'll create one folder, model. And right click on the model and add class, and this will be employee. Just click on add. Now employee class is added. Just check employee ID, employee name, department, salary. So we'll create a properties here. Here we have one shortcut. This is a property called prop, and double press the tab button, so it will create a property syntax here. Just you can change your property name. So emp id and enter property code. Next, employee name. So employee name is string employee name. So I think emp name we have, yes, and the department and the salary. So salary is decimal, I'll take. And these are the, it is showing some warnings. You can give a nullable string, or you can assign a values here, like a string dot empty. You can assign anything, is fine. Just I created a model. Now we will create a DbContext file. So when you want to use entity framework, we have to create a DbContext file. Just we'll create a DbContext, right click, we'll create a one folder like data. I'll create. So under the data, right click, add class, and the class name is, I'll create app DbContext context. And now the app DbContext I will inherit from a DbContext of entity framework library. So since I am using a Git Copilot, it is auto suggested the code. Now I will create a constructor, this called public. So you can see when I type here, automatically the suggested the syntax, because I installed a Git Copilot. I signed up in the My Visual Studio. Just I'll press a tab, it will give us code for you. So now I'll create one more. This we have to using library, we have to namespace we have to include. Next we'll create a data set. You can see when I type automatically the public, it automatically suggested the code. I'll just press tab. So now the app context is ready. Now we have to define a connection string. So connection string we will define in the appsetting.json. Just open appsetting.json, and here we have to give. So the code was auto generated. Just I'll give tab. So now I have to change the server. So for that server, this is my server name, and the database name is demo, and you can use your with Windows authentication, or you can use a SQL authentication. So I have already SQL authentication, so I'll just copy and paste here. So now connection string is ready. Next we'll register our entity framework core in program.cs. So just open program.cs. Just I will uncommand this, all those like Swagger UI, all those stuff, whatever we have earlier, we'll use it the same. Now here we have to register our app DbContext file. So now builder.services.add DbContext. Now I have to give a DbContext name, that is app DbContext. app DbContext, and within this bracket we have to use a option. This is a object. You can option dot use, because we are using a SQL server, so we have to define a use SQL server of builder dot configuration dot get connection string, and we have to give a connection string name here, and our connection string name is default connection string. We'll give default connection string. I think one bracket we have to close. Yeah, here we registered our app DbContext file in the program.cs, and let me uncomment this as well. Now we'll implement endpoints. So here we are going to implement endpoints. First we'll give app dot, you can see the code was auto generated, just map get, you can see. So now this will give a list of all employees from an employee table. So let me add one more, app dot, based on ID it will give our employee data based on ID. Let me add for update and create as well, just app dot post. So the first two is a get. The first one will give list of all employees which is present in the employee table, and the second one based on employee ID will give a particular employee data, and the third one create. So it will create a employee. When you pass employee details to this endpoint, it will create a data into database. Next we'll use a update, app dot put. So if you pass required data to employee with ID, then particular ID employee data will get updated in the database. Now let me add one more, is a delete, app dot delete. Since I am using a Git Copilot, it is the code was auto generating here. Execute this, you can see. Since I am using a Swagger UI, so it will open a Swagger UI. Okay, so I think we have in the launch setting we have to launch the Swagger UI URL. Just click on execute. This will execute and it will open a Swagger UI. So now you can see all the minimal APIs which is employee we defined, so it is loaded here. Just will click on employees get all, click on execute. Okay, some error we got, employee requires a primary key to be defined. Okay, since employee table we have a primary key employee ID, the employee ID is a primary key, so we have to define in the app dot, in the model we have to define here key. So this will consider as a primary key. So now stop and let me execute one more time, and again the Swagger UI opened, will open, try it out, will do, execute. Now we got a connection was established successfully in the server, but then an error occurred during the login process. Provider SSL provider. Okay, just open connection string. Okay, so we defined as a server database name and username and password. So we have to define one more thing, trust server certificate equal to true. Trust server certificate equal to true. Just save and execute. So now just open employees and click on execute. Now we got another error, Microsoft data.sql exception, invalid object name employees. I think okay, the table name is employee, so we defined as a employees. So just click on stop, go to program.cs. You can see the model we defined as a employees here. Just change it to employee. So the dataset name should be same as table. So I think here we'll get error. Yeah. So let's change here also, because the code was Git Copilot auto generator, so I just use it same. So whenever auto generated code, you have to validate. Okay, just I changed everything and click on execute once again. Hope this time will execute, give us the data. Yeah, exactly, we got data here. Just close this, and if you see in the program.cs, all related to employee controller endpoints will be defined in the program.cs. Now if you want to group this all employee related to one group, now we defined as a app dot means it will be like a root level. So I don't want to in the root level. In a normal ASP.NET controller, like all the controllers will be defined in the under controller folder, will be each context one file will normally will create and will go. Like suppose like employee means employee controllers will going to define. Suppose inventory controller we are going to define, will create a endpoints. So like that, in the minimal APIs, if you want to group your endpoints into one context, so you can do that. So for now the app dot means it will be root level. Now we'll group. So let's like I'll define a where employee and equal to, I'll use the app dot map group, and here I'm going to define as a the root, like slash employee. Now I'll use this variable and I'll define here, instead of app dot I'll use this group name, just employee dot like that. Suppose if you want to define any inventory related, you can define one more inventory related group, like inventory, and here you can give inventory related. All the inventory related, you can inventory related group you can define. So the controllers, the minimal endpoints also you can define in similar way. Here one more point, like if you create any ASP.NET Core project, the default controller folder is created and default weather forecast controller is created with some get method. So when you develop any minimal APIs, if you don't want this controller folder, you can choose while creating a project. For that, just open a Visual Studio once again. I'll show you that how to create that. Just click on a new project and I'll select ASP.NET Core Web API template. Click on next. I'll give some project name. Just click on next. And you can see here use controllers, one option is there. Just uncheck this. If you check this use controller, the controller folders will get create and it will normal ASP.NET Core Web API project will get created. If you uncheck this and create, we'll see this. This will create a minimal endpoint project. You can see there is no controller folder here. So, but it is created a controller in the program.cs, that is minimal APIs. If you open a program.cs, you can see here the weather forecast minimal endpoint is created with the default weather forecast get method. So if you execute this, you can see weather forecast endpoint there in the Swagger UI. You can see. the weather forecast endpoint is available. So by default, if you uncheck that use controller option, it will create a minimal endpoint. This is the cleanest way to build a API in a .NET. No controllers, just a simple and readable endpoints definition in the program.cs. We can implement authentication also for minimal APIs. We'll see in upcoming videos for that. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe for more.